Every team on the Formula One grid faces the same problem in Miami. 30 degrees air temps, track surfaces above 50 degrees, and sticky humid air that turns cooling systems into weak points. The answer is always the same. Open the bodywork, add louvers, accept the drag. Every team does it. So why is Ferrari doing the exact opposite, shrinking their side pods heading into the hottest race on the calendar? Ferrari is bringing a reshaped side pod to Miami, with the changes focused on the rear section of the car. The upgrade also includes new floor parts arriving alongside reshaped cooling exits, a fully rewritten energy release software, and weight-saving measures, all bundled into one single package. Chapter 2: Ferrari's Miami Package Revealed. The team is treating this as a package and a half, and the scope of what is coming shows that framing is not an overblown claim. This is not a normal upgrade cycle, and the side pod changes are not normal aerodynamic work. They are the visible result of a choice Ferrari made before the 2026 season even started. A choice buried inside the cylinder head of their engine that is about to pay off at the exact track where it matters most. It was late 2025, and Ferrari's engine team in Maranello was locking in a decision that would define their entire 2026 campaign. Chapter 3: The Steel Cylinder Head Decision. Every other maker on the grid builds their cylinder heads from aluminum. Ferrari chose steel. On paper, that sounds like a step backward. Steel is heavier, harder to shape, and not what Formula One engines are normally built from. And yet, the physics behind that decision set off a chain reaction that now reaches all the way from the burning chamber to the shape of the bodywork sitting above it. The key trait is how fast the metal moves heat. Aluminum moves heat at roughly 205 W per meter Kelvin. Steel sits at around 50. That is a 4:1 gap, and it changes everything about how the engine works with the cooling system. In an aluminum cylinder head, heat from the burning fuel floods through the metal walls and into the coolant loop almost right away. The coolant heats up fast, which means the radiators have to work harder to dump that energy out. A bigger heat load means bigger radiators. Those bigger radiators force wider side pods, and wider side pods create more drag. Ferrari's steel head flips that math. Because steel moves heat so much more slowly, less of it escapes through the cylinder walls in the first place. More of it stays in the hot gases, where it actually does useful work pushing the piston down. The coolant loop runs cooler, the radiators can be smaller, and the bodywork wrapped around those radiators can be pulled tighter against the car. The way Ferrari built the steel head to offset its weight penalty is worth paying attention to. They teamed up with Renault on a 3D metal printing process, building the cylinder head layer by layer with copper and ceramic blends mixed into the steel that allows very thin walls and detailed internal cooling channels that would be impossible with normal casting. The 2026 rules also help them. The minimum engine weight was raised from 120 kilograms to 150, which soaked up much of the weight gap between steel and aluminum before it ever became a problem on track. And Ferrari pushed the heat edge even further. Steel can handle running temps around 400 degrees Celsius before it starts to weaken. Aluminum starts breaking down closer to 300. That higher ceiling means Ferrari can run their coolant hotter, which widens the temperature gap between the coolant and the outside air. A bigger temperature gap means the radiators pull heat out more quickly per square centimeter of surface. Every link in the chain builds on the last. Less heat created in the first place, smaller radiators needed, higher running temps handled, tighter bodywork possible. To grasp what that actually means on the track, think about what happens during a race in brutal heat. As track temps climb above 50 degrees and the air gets thick with Florida moisture, the internal temp of a Formula One engine starts creeping toward its limits. Every team has a heat ceiling. Chapter 5: Ferrari's third option on track. And when the car gets close to it, the engineers have two choices. They can open the bodywork before the race even starts, living with lasting drag for the sake of keeping the car alive. Or they can keep the bodywork tight and manage the heat through power cuts, telling the driver to short shift or coast through certain corners to bring the temps back down. Neither option is fast. Ferrari's steel head gives them a third option. Keep the bodywork tight and keep running at full power, because the heat ceiling is simply higher than everyone else's. That is not a small edge. In Miami's conditions, The gap between a car running with open bodywork and a car running with closed bodywork can be worth 2 to 3 tenths of a second per lap over a full race distance. Spread that across 57 laps, and the time gained adds up enough to change a finishing spot. Now, every team on the grid deals with heat in its own way depending on the track. Teams keep what engineers call an electronic catalog of cooling setups, a database that maps exactly how much each bodywork change costs in drag versus how much cooling it brings. At mild European tracks, most cars run fairly tight bodywork. At hot races like Miami, the catalog gets open wide. Mercedes has a long history of adding cooling louvers to the engine cover when outside temps climb. McLaren brought 10 separate bodywork updates for Miami in 2024, including fully reworked louver layouts. Aston Martin has widened rear cooling exits and even added extra cockpit cooling inlets. The pattern is the same everywhere. Heat goes up, bodywork opens, drag rises, lap time suffers. Ferrari's steel cylinder head breaks that pattern. With less baseline heat to dump, the SF26 holds more thermal headroom before the engineers need to start giving up speed for cooling. Look at the car from above, and the gap is clear even to the naked eye. The SF26 runs the smallest airbox of any car on the 2026 grid, a triangle-shaped design that packs the cooling into the sidepods rather than above the engine. The rear end of the car tapers more sharply than any of its rivals, creating what engineers call a tighter Coke bottle region. While other teams are opening cooling exits and bolting on drag-heavy louvers around the Miami track, Ferrari can keep their tighter bodywork at full power for longer. The edge is not just on paper. It is built into the car, and it grows with the heat. That is what makes the Miami upgrade so big. The reshaped side pod around the rear section is not just a tweaked body panel for a tiny speed gain. It is Ferrari using the heat margin their engine gives them to run a car shape that no aluminum-headed rival can copy in 30 degrees heat without cooking their engine. The side pod changes also serve a second goal. Tighter rear bodywork sends cleaner, faster airflow to the diffuser and rear wing. Ferrari's bypass duct system, where air enters through high-mounted intakes and exits at the base of the engine cover through a deeper channel, creates a very different internal airflow path compared to normal side pod designs. By pulling the rear section in further, they help the diffusers suck more air from beneath the floor, which creates more downforce without adding drag. And this links straight to another piece of the Miami package. Ferrari is expected to bring back a refined version of their Macarena rear wing, the spinning wing system that shifts its angle between straights and corners. The first version showed up earlier this season, but was pulled after material issues forced Ferrari to remove the halo wings in China. The updated version coming from Miami is lighter and reshaped to work with the narrower rear side pod profile.